This morning, I invite you into a time of poetry and reflection. I have invited a couple of my regular worship associates to help me out. Jen McHale, Tiffany Hagberg, and Ann Ford will participate with Tim Walcott in reading the poems that we have to offer you. I did not list all of the poems in the order of service, but I will be making a chapbook of sorts like we have with previous poetry services, of which you can see a handful of them up here on the table. If you have a minute after the service, come take a look at the poetry that is up here on the table. Some of it is poetry from our poetry services. Poetry helps us understand the meanings of things. Poetry, through metaphor and the turn of a phrase, opens us to grasping reality in a way that regular talking does not. All art really allows for this, but poetry in particular is fun. When considering the topic of joy, it is valuable to set the dictionary aside, let it take a seat, tell the philosophers to wait outside, set the spotlight on the poets instead, and learn wisdom from a sideways glance. John Keats wrote, "A thing of beauty is a joy forever." Mother Teresa explained, "Joy is a net of love by which you catch souls." While Rumi reminds us, an eye is meant to see things, the soul is here for its own joy. What does any of that mean? I will smile slyly and ask, what do you all think it means? Billy Collins, in his poem Introduction to Poetry, explains it like this.
I ask them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say drop a mouse into the poem and watch him probe his way out. Or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with a rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means.
So instead of interrogating, let's explore. Let's have some fun. Perhaps you'll learn something along the way. Perhaps not what you intended to learn, but the journey will be worth it all the same. Poems of Joy and Laughter, Part 1. We begin with advice from Mary Oliver, as one ought, who warns us with her title, Don't Hesitate.
If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give into it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind, and much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb.
Joy was not made to be a crumb, she says. There is pain and cruelty. And Mary Oliver admits that we are not very often kind. And yet life continues. Perhaps, she writes, this is its way of fighting back. Joy remains plentiful. Certainly our laughter is often born of a moment of frivolity and lightness, and other times it bursts out of a depth despite its surroundings. Joy is not merely a happy prank or a playful joke. Joy is a reclaiming of life in the face of death. Some note that happiness is transient, a reflection of circumstance. Well, joy is a container for both happiness and sorrow. In this way, joy is a response to life. Listen to the wisdom of African-American poet Lucille Clifton in her piece entitled Homage to My Hips.
These hips are big hips. They need space to move around in. They don't fit into these little pretty places. These hips are free hips. They don't like to be held back. These hips have never been enslaved. They go where they want to go. They do what they want to do. These hips are mighty hips. These hips are magic hips. I have known them to put a spell on a man and spin him like a top.
Joy is something we sometimes must claim for ourselves when the world would rather have us feeling shamed and small. Remembering Keats, we revel in beauty because a thing of beauty is a joy forever. So forget the world's judgment, embrace your beauty, and live in your joy. Joy often arrives in the juxtaposition, in the unexpected, in the pairing of light and dark, the surprises, large and small. And joy, most often, appears in the simple rounds of daily life. Consider the gift of socks. You may know that I am partial to socks. Odd socks, silly socks, colorful socks, fun socks. I have butterflies on today, rainbow butterflies. They're playful. They were a gift from my sister at my mother's memorial service because butterflies are meaningful. And there is joy in that memory. I delight in playful socks, and so I could not refuse this poem from Pablo Neruda, Ode to My Socks.
Maru Mori brought me a pair of socks, which she knitted herself with her sheep herder's hands. 2 socks as soft as rabbits. I slipped my feet into them as though into 2 cases knitted with threads of twilight and goatskin. Violent socks. My feet were 2 fish made of wool, 2 long sharks, sea blue, shot through with 1 golden thread. 2 immense blackbirds, 2 cannons. My feet were honored in this way by these heavenly socks. They were so handsome, for the first time my feet seemed to me unacceptable, like 2 decrepit firemen unworthy of that woven fire, of those glowing socks. Nevertheless, I resisted the sharp temptation to save them somewhere as schoolboys keep fireflies, as learned men collect sacred texts. I resisted to put them into a cage and each day feed them birdseed and pieces of pink melon. Like explorers in the jungle who hand over the rare green deer to the spit and eat it with remorse, I stretched out my feet and pulled on the magnificent socks and then my shoes. The moral of my ode is this: beauty is twice beauty, and what is good is doubly good when it's a matter of 2 socks made of wool in winter.
Have you ever found joy in an ordinary moment? Ponder this question. Have you ever found joy in an ordinary moment? You're probably thinking, of course, isn't that where you find joy? Consider this next poem, a captured glimpse of joy amid horses and young children. We have many poets in our congregation, but only one poem came to me this month from somebody within our congregation. And we offer you now Christine O'Donnell's poem, Old Logging Road.
The old logging road meandered through the forest like a slow-moving reptile, plodding along one mighty step at a time. General, the palomino, stepped lightly along the overgrown trail or leapt over fallen tree trunks, keeping his balance. Topper, the gentle sweet Morgan, tiptoed light as a feather, gracefully maneuvering the trail. He refused to be startled by the raccoon that ran across the ancient road. The children, Chrissy and Mavis, laughed and giggled, unaware of the power of the old logging road.
I have so many poems to share this morning. And here is one more before we wrap up part one of this poetry reading disguised as a sermon. With a poem that to me feels classic, although I don't recall ever sharing it in worship before. It continues this theme of where we find joy. Welcome Morning by Anne Sexton.
There is joy in all, in the hair I brush each morning, in the cannon towel newly washed that I rub my body with each morning, in the chapel of eggs I cook each morning, in the outcry from the kettle that heats my coffee each morning, in the spoon and the chair that cry, "Hello there, Anne," each morning, in the Godhead of the table that I set my silver plate cup upon each morning. All this is God, right here in my pea-green house each morning, and I mean, though I often forget, to give thanks, to faint down by the kitchen table in a prayer of rejoicing as the holy birds at the kitchen window peck into their marriage of seeds. So while I think of it, let me paint a thank you on my palm. For this God, this laughter of the morning, lest it go unspoken. The joy that isn't shared, I've heard, dies young.
Part two. Is there some part of life or of yourself that you take joy in, but the world says you're supposed to not? Perhaps an insect, perhaps your hips, perhaps there's some aspect of your identity, of your experience, that you could turn to poetry and craft something that expresses that love, that joy. When I was researching, looking for poetry and more looking for how poetry leads us into understanding, I found an article in a magazine called Rethinking Schools, focusing on promoting equity and racial justice in classrooms. The article was about how the teacher was using poetry to empower the learners and bring more joy into their learning process. The teacher used the works of poets such as Langston Hughes and Maya Angelou, encouraging the kids to write their own poetry in response to and in conversation with these great works. Lucille Clifton's poem about her hips was included in that curriculum, encouraging the children to write poems of their own about their own bodies or their own experiences. They read Pablo Neruda's ode about the socks in English as well as in the original Spanish, and they discussed his descriptive imagery and how he offers praise to ordinary objects. I wanted to share one of the students' poems this morning. Sarah Schofield found particular joy in reading Neruda's poetry in the original Spanish, and it sparked her to write about the linguistic pleasure she has of being bilingual in her poem, Ode to Spanish.
A language as beautiful as music, melodious verbs, harmonious adjectives, rhythmic nouns intertwine as I speak. An orchestra of words conducted by my tongue. I compose a new song as those around me listen. Musical sentences rich with the notes of culture. A romance language stirring the hearts of its listeners. The music plays on as I watch with wonder how my untrained yet experienced tongue conducts the orchestra, and the music pleases me.
Sometimes poetry just feels good in your mouth. The words play in a particular way. For some, the joy of poetry is its rhythms and cadence, the rhymes and the phrasing. For others, it's the subtle twist revealing a message. If we were talking about music, we would be talking about some like the beat and some like the lyrics. Carol Finch sent me a poem someone had given to her many years back that has continued to feel bright and enlightening to her after all this time. It's called Bugs in a Bowl by Han Shan.
We're just like bugs in a bowl, all day going around, never leaving their bowl. I say that's right, every day, climbing up the steep sides, sliding back over and over again, around and around, up and back down. Sit in the bottom of your bowl, head in your hands, cry, moan, feel sorry for yourself, or look around, see your fellow bugs. Walk around. Say, hey, how you doing? Say, nice bowl.
Hey, nice bowl. Sometimes it's the message. A wisdom poem inviting us to enjoy the delivery of the message and to uncover the content of the message as well. There are riches all around us awaiting our discovery. Hey, nice bowl. Here's a silly one from children's author and poet Judith Vorst. Karen Manzer submitted this one for us this morning. It's entitled, Mother Doesn't Want a Dog.
Mother doesn't want a dog. Mother says they smell and never sit when you say sit or even when you yell. And when you come home late at night and there is ice and snow, the dog has to go. Mother doesn't want a dog. Mother says they shed and always let the strangers in and bark at friends instead. And do disgraceful things on rugs and track mud on the floor and flop upon your bed at night and snore their doggy snore. Mother doesn't want a dog. She's making a mistake because more than a dog, I think, she will not want this snake.
A lot of joy is found in relationship, so the love of a good animal companion is a source of joy for many people. I know I already brought you a Mary Oliver poem, and I'm straining my Mary Oliver quota to bring you a second one, and yet that's exactly what I'm about to do. Mary Oliver does not limit her poetry only to moss and bugs and birds. She has a small set of poems about her little white dog, Percy. Have any of you ever bumped into Mary Oliver's Percy poems? Oh. The third one in the set is Little Dog's Rhapsody in the Night, or Percy 3. He
puts his cheek against mine and makes small, expressive sounds. And when I'm awake, or awake enough, he turns upside down, his 4 paws in the air, and in his eyes dark and fervent. "Tell me you love me," he says. "Tell me again." Could there be a sweeter arrangement? Over and over, he gets to ask it. I get to tell.
Poems of joy are not always silly. Sometimes they lead you into, that moment of recognition, that connection, that love. I had the great pleasure to hear Mary Oliver recite poetry back in 2006, almost 20 years back. And here now, in 2025, I've been thinking of these Percy poems as I prepared for this service. They still make me smile. I'm not a dog person, I confess, but I do understand the draw and appreciate the love and the joy. The second of the 3 Percy poems was written back in the early 2000s, an important point of context for the poem, although many of the references remain recognizable and relevant today. Percy 2.
I have a little dog who likes to nap with me. He climbs on my body and puts his face in my neck. He is sweeter than soap. He's more wonderful than a diamond necklace, which can't even bark. I would like to take him to Kashmir and the Ukraine, and Jerusalem and Palestine and Iraq and Darfur, that the sorrowing thousands might see his laughing mouth. I would like to take him to Washington, right into the Oval Office, where Donald Rumsfeld would crawl out of the president's armpit and kneel down on the carpet and romp like a boy. For once, for a moment, a rational man.
Oh, Mary. We all wish this. Might we all need reminders from time to time that joy is not just a break, an escape, a small bit of fun when everything else is so serious? Might we all need a reminder now and then that joy is one way we stay human? Embracing joy is a way to keep our spirits alive when we live in soul-deadening times. When we say joy is a form of resistance, we mean that joy helps us stay connected to ourselves and to others, that we might kneel down on a carpet and romp like a child, for once rational. And poetry is a form of communication that is revelatory. Poetry can lift us beyond the ordinary and reveal to us insights we might otherwise miss. Our final poem is by my elder colleague, Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed, entitled, "Let Me Die Laughing."
We are all dying, our lives always moving toward completion. We need to learn to live with death and to understand that death is not the worst of all events. We need to fear not death, but life, empty lives, loveless lives, lives that do not build upon the gifts that each of us have been given, lives that are like living deaths, lives which we never take the time to savor and appreciate, lives in which we never pause to breathe deeply. What we need to fear is not death, but squandering the lives we have been miraculously given. So let me die laughing, savoring one of life's crazy moments. Let me die holding the hand of one I love and recalling that I tried to love and was loved in return. Let me die remembering that life has been good, that I did what I could. But today, just remind me that I am dying so that I can live, savor, and love with all of my heart.
Let us die laughing, that we may better love with all our hearts. In a world without end, may it be so. Let us join in